All right, time to take a quick trip around the DFS diamond and price check some salaries with our Major League Baseball panel, which this morning consists of DraftKings contributor Garion, Thorne, RotoWire's Erik, Halterman. What's up, dudes? 12 games to choose from on the main slate. Garion, who's your pitcher north of 8K? You have 10 guys to choose from.
It's funny. You know how much of a stickler I am for these rules. I did really want to kind of talk about Robbie Ray, but he's exactly 8,000, so he's like the one pitcher I cannot talk about on this segment, technically speaking. But I think Erik Lauer kind of falls into a similar category at this point. He's $2,400 more expensive, so that's somewhat unfortunate. But his matchup is much better against the Washington Nationals, and Lauer has been really just unrecognizable this season, at least when you look at his statistical profile. His last 5 starts, 2.08 ERA, 2.20 xFIP, 37% strikeout rate. I mean, he's striking out batters like the other left-handed pitcher on the Milwaukee Brewers, Josh Hader. This is not a version of Erik Lauer that I am used to seeing, but I think the sample size is large enough now where I'm willing to pay up and pay this price for that level of strikeout production. And I also think, like I said, this is a really good matchup against a Washington Nationals team that has struggled to produce much against left-handed pitching so far this season. If there has been a single knock on Lauer in 2022, it has been his struggles with the long ball. Well, the Nationals have the lowest isolated power in baseball against left-handed pitching at just .079. So the thing he does the worst, they also do the worst. So I think this is a really, really nice spot for Lauer.
Erik, where are you going here?
I think Lauer is also my top guy, but I want to say, how hilarious is this slate? If you told me before the start of the season that we would have a slate where the 2 most expensive pitchers on a full slate were Erik Lauer and Nestor Cortes, I don't think I would believe you at all. But I'm going to pay up for either of them. I think they both look for real. Lauer, everything Garion said about him, I agree with. His numbers are looking almost Corbin Burnsian this year. But Nestor Cortes, striking out 32.5% of opposing batters, walking 7.3%. He's not going to keep his 1.35 ERA, but all his ERA estimators start with a 2. This is a legitimately excellent start. Last year, he showed some signs of this, but not nearly to the same extent, and he had a very low ground ball rate. This year, it's just a normal low ground ball rate at 36.3%. I don't love the matchup against the White Sox compared to Lauer's matchup, which is why I would take Lauer number 1. But I have a feeling people will lean that way in general, and if you want to go with the second best option for a similar price, I don't think you're much worse off with Cortes.
All right, Garion, pitcher under 8K. If you want to talk Robbie Ray, like, you are more than welcome to. Like, when we say north of 8K, you could probably start at 8K. Like, we like you enough, you know?
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Let me just say this briefly about Ray, because I think he's going to be someone who's under-owned on this slate because the matchup is terrible. The Red Sox are red hot right now.
Yeah, they are, dude.
He was not great in his last start when you look at the surface numbers. However, the velocity is back for Robbie Ray. He was up over 94 miles an hour with that average fastball velocity in his last start. The 3 starts he's had this season where his fastball has averaged over 93 miles per hour, he struck out at least 9 guys in all 3 of those starts. So if he truly has his velocity back, he's at least the version of Robbie Ray last season where, yeah, he might give up 3 home runs. You just cross your fingers and hope they're solo home runs, and you live with the 9, 10, 11 strikeouts that he might get you. So that's just really the one thing I wanted to say about Robbie Ray.
Okay.
I think a guy who's kind of in like a similar spot, someone with a lot of name recognition but has not really had the stats so far in 2022, who is just much cheaper than I would have expected him to be, to kind of to Erik's point about this slate being turned upside down from our expectations of 2 months ago. Luis Castillo, he's only made 2 starts since coming off the IL. Neither has been particularly pretty. He has not generated a lot of swinging strikes. His fastball velocity is not quite where it was the last couple of seasons, but he's just $7,300, and the Blue Jays kind of stink right now, at least offensively. In the month of May, a .107 isolated power, that is only better than the Oakland Athletics among American League teams. They have a .277 WOBA in the month of May. That is the 4th lowest mark in all of baseball. I mean, there was the perception coming into the season that you should fear the Blue Jays lineup. Right now, that's just not the case. So I think taking a chance with a high upside lotto ticket like Luis Castillo is a really nice thing to do on Friday.
Erik, where are you going under $8,000 on the mound?
Yes, a pretty uninspiring group here, though I guess that's why they're under 8,000. The only guys who I'd normally have some interest in would be somebody like Castillo or Ranger Suarez or maybe Carlos Carrasco, but they all have tough matchups. I know Garion laid out a case for maybe why Castillo's matchup isn't as bad as it should be. I'm still pretty scared, though. So in this group, I actually like Chase Silseth. And I can't claim to know a ton about Chase Silseth. He's not a huge prospect. He was an 11th round pick last year, and he's reaching the majors after 7 professional starts. But he really seemed to break out at the AA level this season. 37.4% strikeout rate against a 7.1% walk rate. Earned him a promotion to the big leagues last week, and he only went and threw 6 shutout innings in his major league debut. The one downside here is that debut did come against the same team he's facing tonight, which is generally helps the hitters. But how much does it help when those hitters are the A's hitters? It's not a very good lineup at all, and that's a huge understatement. They ranked last by WRC Plus. So I wish they didn't face them last week, but even still, given a matchup this good, given what he's shown in a very tiny professional sample, I think I'd take a chance on him at 7,800.
Yeah, it looks like his name is all over a lot of these DK Nation articles for a value play tonight. It'll be just his second career start. Let's go to dudes who swing good wood. Garion, an infielder north of 4K, please.
So I'll say this guy's my favorite infielder on the slate, but you do have to be a little careful because apparently it's snowing in Denver.
Yeah, dude. Actually, it's true. I have a weather guy, I'm not kidding you, who works for CNN, who just texted me on a group chat with one of our buddies who lives out in Denver and is like, enjoy the snow in May.
Look, I live in Toronto, so if I'm appalled at your snow in May, you know you've got a problem. There's a chance this game doesn't play, if we're just being perfectly honest. But if it does play, the Mets are just scoring runs like few other teams right now. So I think you can really just attack the top of their order, specifically with the left-handed bats. So far this season, they've given German Marquez the most issue. Lefties are hitting 320 with a 404 WOBA against him in 2022. So I know Francisco Lindor has cooled down considerably from his hot start to the season, but he's just $5,100 at Coors Field. I think if this game plays, Lindor is one of the better dollar-for-dollar guys on this slate.
All right, Denver is bracing for as much as a half foot of snow. Erik, infielder north of $4,000, please.
I didn't have to text any of my CNN buddies for this one, which
Hey, he texted me, dude. It's like you speak it into existence here.
All right. Well, if you want to start name dropping, we can just do that. Yeah. But anyway, my top pick here in this category, Josh Donaldson at 4,600. 3 homers in his last 7 starts. So he's on a roll lately. He's been pretty good all year, hitting 252, 361, 439, which, of course, is much better this year with the lower run environment. His underlying stats look excellent. 90th percentile average exit velocity, 86th percentile barrel rate. He'll get the platoon advantage here against Dallas Keuchel, who the Yankees just faced last week. Keuchel's got an ERA north of 5, just like he had last year, and I think he's just done. I don't think he can be starting for a contender much longer. I kind of doubt he ends the year in the White Sox rotation. Just one more strikeout than walk this season, a 12.5% strikeout rate against an 11.7% walk rate. I want to be loading up on Yankees here. The only thing that would stop me is that I think everybody else is going to be doing the same thing.
Erik, we'll end with this. Hook me up with a value hitter.
A value hitter, let's go with Nick Castillanos at 3,800. I was surprised to see him this cheap, but actually he's been even cheaper last few days. And I don't totally understand it. He hasn't been as good as he was last year, hitting 271 after hitting 309 last season. Strikeout rate up about 4 points. Barrel rate's down about 2 points. But he's still a very good hitter, still a 122 WRC+. This kind of guy who was going for around 5,000 for much of last season. So to see him under 4,000, I like it a lot. At home, one of the better hitters parks in the league. Platoon advantage against Julio Urias, who just gave up 8 runs and 4 homers to the Phillies last weekend and just isn't that intimidating of an opponent this season. So I think anytime you can get a talent like this for under 4,000, you have to be interested.
Garion.
Yeah, I'm going to attack Aaron Cevalle, who's given up 27 earned runs in 24 2/3 innings so far this season, 2.19 opponent home runs per 9. he just is not missing bats right now. And when hard contact is made, it has tended to leave the ballpark. So the Tigers aren't a team that you can really aggressively stack. I understand that. There's not a ton of amazing players, and Javier Baez, who's like their one guy above 4K, has been struggling so far this season. But I think Willie Castro is a nice way to get some exposure to the Tigers. He's pretty much locked in to the number 2 spot in that batting order, especially with Austin Meadows on the IL right now, hitting .322 with a 131 WRC plus so far this season. He's got a little bit of speed as well. And also, once they get into that Guardian bullpen, he's a switch hitter, so he's always going to have the platoon advantage.